Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms. And as usual, I'm joined by Stam Schneider from Primetime Sports Talk. Before we forget, go tell them where they can find all your stuff.
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at buy and sell you. You can find Primetime Sports Talk at Talk Primetime and primetimesportstalk.com.
So, well, basically what we're doing is we're just going to do this special show here. We didn't want to take up a preview or a recap because those are designed to really cover the game that had just either we're previewing or had just happened. We had all this stuff with Dunlap going down yesterday, actually last week, and then a lot of it culminated on Saturday and Sunday, and nothing really new today, but we didn't want to take up any of the recap show. We had so much of the game to cover. So we said, we're going to do this special show. I'm really tired. It's West Coast, but end of a work day for us. But we don't want to deal with this on Thursday again, unless obviously there's more news. But, sit there and deal with it. Obviously, if you've watched any of our videos, Sam and I completely disagree on this. This isn't any stage thing. I mean, we absolutely have differing opinions on it, which a lot of the fan base, if you look at Twitter, Facebook, they disagree on this. So talking about a state of the locker room, talking about the feeling of the coaching staffs, as you know, by watching the videos, I'm not a fan. I give Zach to the end of the season and then I'm ready to move on. That's just where I am. I know I speak for, a large portion of the fan base, certainly not all of it. There are supporters of him. So, with that, I'll throw it over to you and we'll get this thing going.
Yeah, and I feel the same way, and I'm also very tired. I was editing until 5 o'clock this morning, West Coast time, and I think both of us kind of regretted committing to this. But this is a thing that means a lot to Bengals fans. There's a lot going on, so we kind of need to talk about it. Right. And it really all started when Sean Williams went on Twitter and posted something to the effect of, don't waste my talent. It's since been deleted, but before it was deleted, you had Jermaine Pratt jumped on and said, or mine, Darius Phillips, Darius Phillips, really? Or mine. And then John Ross got in there. And I think that's why it got deleted, because Bengals fans were all over John Ross.
Rightfully so. I think that's the one thing that's an agreement of all of this is John Ross is in a position to say anything. You're John Ross, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, there were casual fans saying things like, you were picked before Patrick Mahomes and you can't catch a ball as a wide receiver. So he got torched. But that was kind of the beginning of is there a problem in the locker room question, which I think we both agree that there is a problem in the locker room, but I think we disagree on, to what degree it is. But Carlos Dunlap has gone off the deep end.
Oh, there's no, and let me just preface this by saying, I'm not a fan of this coaching staff. Okay. Carlos Dunlap has been a model citizen up to this point. And my whole thing is, I don't think that this happened overnight. This has been a series of events that has led to this. But I don't agree with how Carlos dealt with this. I don't agree with the subsequent results as to how he's playing on the field, how he's acting in the locker room. All that's over the top. Going to Twitter and social media, not the place to do it. I haven't agreed with anything. Now, whether or not he's justified in being upset with the coaching staff, that's a separate issue. But I haven't agreed with anything that Carlos did over the last week that I thought was right. That was all handled inappropriately, but it's not uncommon. Let me give everybody a little background because they probably don't know what I do for a living. I'm a valuation consultant. I put values on assets that people are fighting over. So I work a lot of family law cases, a lot of beneficiary disputes, a lot of neighbor disputes. I'm constantly dealing with people who are fighting. And I know that this thing, I've been involved in trial cases that go 4 or 5 years with people fighting. I've seen the dynamic of siblings fighting, spouses fighting, and this is and business partners. I do a lot of business dissolution. So I've seen what business partners will do to one another. And all of this they all have a common thread, and it's not something you see something happen, but it's something that goes back to things that happened a while ago. And that's been my whole point. But go on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because one of the sources that I talked to inside the organization said that this is not a this year thing for Carlos Dunlap. This is as soon as Zach Taylor got there, and I don't know if it's because being challenged. I don't know if it's because all of a sudden he's not getting along with Nick Eason, the defensive line coach. But my suspicion is that once again, this is a Marvin Lewis holdover, and we all love Carlos. He's done amazing things for this organization and played so well, but he's getting up there in age, and he's shown on the field that he's not, the same guy he's been in the past. And so I don't mind relegating him a little down the depth chart, although they pushed him further down than I would have expected. But he's a holdover from the Marvin Lewis era, and Marvin coddled his favorite players all the time. And I think Dunlap is not being coddled now, and he doesn't like that.
Right. Well, I asked people on the last video to watch Ace Boogie's video. And the reason why I wanted you to watch New Stripe City is Ace talked to some veteran players that aren't with the team anymore, but that have ears in the locker room. He talked to a lot of different people. You can see from his show, he interviews a lot of players, and he's got people on. And there was some stuff that he was now able to report that he told me weeks ago that went down, where the coaches actually called out Carlos in front of the whole team and said things that were inappropriate. If I was working in an office place and my boss has said that to me in front of the whole office and in front of the whole staff, I probably have a serious labor dispute, a very viable court case against that firm or against my boss. There was stuff that was done that's just inappropriate in the workplace. And I think a lot of the stuff, when you're looking at his play on the field, I think stems from a lot of the conflict and I didn't know anything about the line coach. I just knew that this stuff was said to him in the locker room that wasn't appropriate. If you want to take him off to the side. You don't dress down an employee in front of all of it. Now, you and I have had conversations about Jim Turner being like a military guy. Y'all, I'm not a fan of Jim Turner. I was very upset. One of the things, I was excited when we hired Zach, but then one of the first things he did was show Pollock the door, which I didn't agree with. But Jim Turner is one of those guys, he probably, this is the head of Bullygate in Miami. He probably in Miami did a code red on Jonathan Martin and all that. This may be his way of trying to motivate people, but that's not everybody responds to peer pressure as motivation. That's not a great coaching technique. And if that was the technique, was to call Carlos out in front of the whole team and try to pull a code red on him, like I said, a lot of this stuff, it's personalities clashing. And a lot of it has to do is, as a coach, you have to be able to manipulate, not manipulate, but you have to be able to massage personalities. If you read, what's his face? I'm trying to remember the coach. Pat Riley's book, he talks about how he was able to keep Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jamal Wilkes. And you go to the people, Norm Nixon, he was able to keep them all happy for years. And there's an art to doing that. That's truly coaching.
This is probably not the best time to bring up Pat Riley with all the asterisk talk, but I agree with that. And I agree with you on Turner. I'm not a fan. I've never defended him. I've just always said, when asked the question, I've just always said, it seems like they think that he's going to get the line turned around. And I think we both agree that has not happened. The line is younger than a lot of people realize, and I get that, but it's just not doing the job. And when you've got a marquee quarterback back there who I think, honestly, is going to lead Cincinnati to the promised land at some point.
Yes.
You've got to protect him. But Turner's his style of coaching is so outdated. I mean, he's only 55, but in football terms, 55 is a long time. You know what I mean? It's not, you can't, this is a young man's game. It's the reason we see guys like Taylor and LaFleur and
McDermott. You can go through the whole list of all the young coaches. Yeah.
it's a young man's game, and I mean the fact that Mike McCarthy even has a job is ridiculous. But so there's things that are outdated, and you have to evolve. I mean, you have to evolve. Even Callahan, our offensive coordinator, he's been in the league 11 years, and I think I like what he's doing. I'm not sure, because I don't know if Zach Taylor or Callahan is making the call to go to things like the prevent, play a soft zone, or whatever. I just don't know, and I don't think we ever will know.
Right.
Unless one of them is fired and says that guy did it, and blame it on the other dude. And even then, it's a game of telephone. You know what I mean? You never know what's true or what's not. But the Dunlap thing, tweeting on the, I'm switching back gears again. Dunlap tweeted on the sidelines that his house was for sale. We talked about that in the recap. Tyler Boyd commented on that tweet and said, and I quote, "Some sucker shit, Los." So he wasn't happy about that. Right. And then he also said, when asked about it afterwards in a presser, he said, "How do you feel about, Carlos Dunlap's situation?" And he said that he doesn't agree with him, doing things like tweeting on the sideline. And he said, quote, I don't agree with that. So, I'm not completely disagreeing with you that there's a locker room issue. But what I am saying is that I think there are still players that that still buy into what we are doing, and calling out the players that are not.
Okay. I just, my whole thing is, where there's smoke, there's fire. And now I'm looking back and I'm seeing this Cordy Glenn issue from last year. And I'm thinking this was probably a personality thing between, Jim Turner. Maybe he was using his military, form of motivation, to try to get Cordy Glenn, and it wasn't working. Jim Turner doesn't seem like a guy who takes correction well, let's put it that way, which is typical of military people. They tend to be very set in their ways. It's my way or the highway kind of thing. And that doesn't always work, especially when you're dealing with these high-priced athletes. But I'm looking back. I
will say this, Mark. As far as I know, Cordy Glenn is not rostered right now. And I know, you've got a league full of teams desperate for offensive linemen, and Cordy Glenn can't get on a team. And before he came to us, Bills fans said, "This guy's a dick. He's a mess. He doesn't want to play. He wants to collect a paycheck."
Right. I'm just looking back at all these things, and then we're looking at where AJ wasn't happy and Gino wasn't happy, and I think it may be indicative of a deeper issue in terms of the coaches. We're dealing with the staff. Zach Taylor has zero experience being, he has very minimal. It's a partial season as just a coordinator on Miami. Okay. I just don't know if these guys are equipped to handle the positions they're in, and they're kind of learning on the job. I think as Bengal fans, I think they all feel that way. And now when we had Andy Dalton and we were kind of this team that was going to reboot, and, we were coming off a bad season and all that, but it was Dalton. I didn't feel the urgency. But now, like you said, we have a quarterback who I truly believe is a generational talent. He can lead us to the promised land, and we're about to lose his first year. If we give Zach Taylor another year and he turns out to not be the guy, we'll have wasted the first 2 years of Joe Burrow's rookie deal with coaches that aren't equipped to do the job right. And one of the things I want to say is, one of the things I'm watching the Cardinals last night in that overtime thriller with Seattle. And I'm thinking, this was a team that traded up to get Josh Rosen and then realized they made a mistake. They realized it. So what was the first thing? They moved Josh Rosen. They get the coach they want. They get the quarterback they want. And look where they are a couple years later. And it's like, but the thing is Do you know how hard it was for ownership and the GM to admit, you know what? We should never have traded up for Josh Rosen. Most teams would have stuck with him 2 or 3 years. We spent a first rounder like we've done with Ross. We've given Ross every opportunity because we screwed up and drafted him as a top 10 pick. He shouldn't even have been a first round pick, but we stay with him because we wasted that pick. That's not admitting your mistake. And when you don't admit your mistake, not admitting you were wrong makes you more wrong. So at the end of the season, if we don't admit that we're wrong with Zach wasn't the choice. We should have gone after Bieniemy. We should have gone after Jack Del Rio, whatever it is. If we don't admit that, we're just more wrong. We're going to throw another year away on this staff. That's my feeling.
Well, I agree. We definitely should have gone after Bieniemy. He was definitely my guy. And Del Rio was the guy, but the underground word was that we kind of lowballed him because we thought that he wasn't going to get another job and he'd take it. And he said, the Bengals,
no,
don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do that, which I get it. I totally get it.
Right.
But it's, it's an exercise in patience. It's not like we were reloading for a run. It's not like we all of a sudden were going to be amazing this year. And, the offense has played admirably this season. The problem is, and as long as we're doing this, special video on coaches, the problem is Anarumo. I don't mind his schemes, but his defensive play calls are not good. And he's not aided by the fact that he lost free agent acquisitions. Trey Waynes, gone. DJ Reader, gone. Mackenzie Alexander, missed several games. Geno Atkins, injured. It's not completely his fault, but it's the defense that we need to be looking at. And not, Zach Taylor's calling offensive plays, and this Sunday I loved his play calls.
Yeah, but
and I have no problem with Callahan's schemes. Right. So I think we're misplacing the blame here. And instead of saying that the head coach is screwing everything up, we need to say the defense is fucked. Pardon the language, but it's true.
But part of it is judgment. Like one of the reasons why I don't like Turner is you can go on YouTube, and I'm sure it's still up there. There's the video of him addressing the women's group on football. And it was just, here's a guy who's addressing a women's group, and he puts sexist jokes in his presentation that are offensive. And you're sitting there going, and I go, you could say, in his defense, not his defense, how he defended it was, well, I thought they were funny. Well, you know what? The fact that you even told those jokes in that room shows me you have zero common sense and zero judgment. And then the fact that Zach puts you on, I have to hitch Zach to that decision. You let Pollock leave, which pissed Mixon off because he's one of the best offensive line coaches out there. He built the Dallas line, and we sent him packing for a guy who's got horrible judgment. And then Zach has done nothing but defend Turner, which calls into question his judgment for me, because you've now hitched your wagon. If you surround yourself with morons and you defend the morons, that makes you a moron.
Yeah, I agree with that. And aside from the Anarumo thing, I couldn't agree more that Jim Turner is obviously not the guy. Like I said, he's outdated. He's old for this day and age in NFL football. He's old. He's old to try to talk to a bunch of, I think our median age on the offensive line is like 23 at best.
Right.
He's not equipped for that. They're half his age. I mean, I think they're less than half his age.
And he's a my way or the highway guy.
Yeah.
And that's not just that kind of coaching technique. You need to be, I'm not saying that you should be kissing Dunlap's ass, but you need to be better at balancing and motivating people. And not everybody, I have 3 kids, and motivating each one of them is completely different. If I applied a uniform method across the board, I'd fail with 2 of the 3. There is
Of
no
course, you
uniform
have to
method for all
know
of them.
you have to know what people's strengths and likes and how they respond. Like you said with kids, you have to recognize, um, how they respond and not tiptoe, but like you said, address everybody differently. Turner is not the guy.
Right.
I honestly believe there is talent on that offensive line. I really do. There are physical misgivings. Billy Price has his arms are too short. Fred Johnson, his feet are too slow. You
Alex
can't go,
Redmond can't seem to get away from
Alex
the
Redmond
mental.
can't. Alex
Can't get away
Redmond
from the mental
he
mistakes.
can't help himself.
Right. Alex Redmond can't help but be Alex Redmond.
And you can't coach up a guy to have longer arms, of course. But I do think that somebody else could get more out of them. But again, I'm placing blame on Turner and Anarumo. And I understand what you're saying. If you're defending a moron, then you're a moron. I'm still not placing blame on Zach Taylor, other than he hired the guys because he came in late and there was nobody left. So he kind of had to do what he had to do. But I mean, what do you want him to do, Mark?
Well,
do you want him to come out after the game and say, "Yeah, Turner really screwed that up"?
No, I wanted him to surround himself.
He can't do that
with better people, because that would have shown you. To me, you put a Jack Del Rio on the staff. You get a Bill Callahan on the staff to do the offensive line. You keep Pollock in the building. He was Mixon's choice for O-line coach. There's, like I said, that from the beginning, I was excited. I didn't know a lot about him, but I was excited that we got somebody kind of off the radar as our coach. And then I watched the decisions that proceeded, and I was kind of getting less excited. But I said, you know what? Let's go the year. Let's see what we got. And
he was up against the wall. He was up against the wall after the Super Bowl.
What's ignited everything is the fact that we now have Burrow, and we're pissing away the rookie contract. If we at the end of this season, let's just say we get to the string of games where we should win three of the four. We've talked about this, and they're not going to be easy games. Washington's not a pushover. Miami's not a pushover, but certainly they're not Tennessee and Pittsburgh, right? We get to those games and we're not clicking. We're not seeing progress. At the end of the season, we got to do what Arizona did. We have to admit, Duke Tobin has to sit down and admit, we made a mistake. Let's go fix it. Let's not throw another year away and then only have 2 years left of Burrow's rookie contract. And I think a lot of the success we're having on offense, I think, is directly attributed to Burrow. You look at like Kyler Murray last night. There was a lot of plays that were dead plays that he turned into positives. He'll make the coaches look better. Burrow's making.
Yeah, but Mark, who is calling those plays for Burrow?
Yeah, but a lot of the plays are being either audibleized or
what's a lot? Give me a percentage.
Well, I don't know the percent. I haven't sat down and broke it, but I'm saying Burrow makes a lot of things happen. The play calling,
he's not calling 80% of the plays.
Andy Dalton had similar plays called for him, and he didn't excel. He panicked, freaked out under duress, and would chuck the ball out of bounds, or would just immediately turn to run, or just he didn't deal with duress as well as Burrow. Burrow's very good in crunch time. We've talked about how well he is. A lot of the success we're having, we wouldn't be having if it was a different quarterback and it wasn't Burrow.
Well, I agree. Well, I guess all I'm saying is Burrow looked like a monster on Sunday, and he did not call those plays himself.
I understand that, but a lot of it's execution.
You know who did?
So either Zach or Callahan. I don't know who.
Zach Taylor called those fucking plays.
Right. Like I said, and we've had games the week before where we didn't like the play calling. So it's not like we've loved Zach's play. Last night you talked about Anarumo being handicapped by the injuries. Look at how injury riddled the San Francisco 49ers are right now. But their coaching staff is working around it. They're scheming and they're figuring out ways to be successful. I used the same team the week before when we talked about Shanahan and the plays he had called when the Niners upset the Rams. I mean, he came in with a beautiful scheme, called beautiful plays, and protected his quarterback, dealt with the injuries he had and everything. That's what I'm looking for more out of this coaching staff, and I just don't see it. That's kind of my problem.
And I'll repeat what I said earlier. I'm all for Anarumo hitting the road. I'm not buying it. I wasn't trying to excuse him with the injuries. I was just saying he didn't have much to work with because our depth was not good. I think we can both agree that Darius Phillips, who is one of the guys saying "Don't waste my talent," probably shouldn't be on the field for any other team.
No.
He shouldn't even be out there. And he's the one that cost us on that on the end of the game touchdown catch.
Yeah, he did
Sunday.
cost us. He was the victim of the Baker Mayfield pass. But I want to point something out. The last two passes that Baker Mayfield completed were perfectly thrown balls.
They were, but I mean,
I don't. You could have put Jalen Ramsey on that play, and the pass still gets through there. I mean, they were just put in. So I'm not blaming Phillips for the coverage, but I mean the
week before Darius Phillips had a PFF grade of 28. I don't know if anybody looks at Pro Football Focus, but that's really bad.
No, I get. Listen,
really,
I agree. He shouldn't be saying anything.
Really bad.
I'm just pointing out
that he would not start for any other team in the entire NFL. So again, I'm not excusing Anarumo, and I still don't think he should be here.
Right.
I like his schemes, but I don't like the plays that he's calling. Or I don't know who's got the sticker on the helmet, who he's entrusted, but he might need to think about switching it up. You know what I mean?
Right. So, well, that's I'm one of those don't tell me, show me. And I've completely lost faith in this coaching staff. So I'm looking at the stuff, like I said, going on in the locker room. I don't like what I hear. I don't like what I see. It's still a reflection of the people on top. And I'm looking at what we're seeing on social media, and I'm looking at how we're getting out coached. I mean, literally half the games we've had, we've been out coached. We're going to see it over the next 2 weeks. Vrabel's coming in here. He's a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
We get Tomlin following him after that. And even when you go down the line, you're talking about Brian Flores has did a wonderful job in Miami this year.
Absolutely.
So you're going
Flores is awesome.
Yeah, he's doing great. So they clearly got their hire right. Cliff Kingsbury, who I think everybody kind of questioned because he had a losing record in college, and I think you watched the game last night, and he surrounded himself. Who's his defensive coordinator?
Right.
Okay. I mean, he surrounded himself with better people. And the example I always use is Jimmy Carter versus Ronald Reagan. And I'm not getting political here with blue or red, but Jimmy Carter surrounded himself with morons. He was a chemical engineering major. He's a highly intelligent guy, but he put Brother Billy in the cabinet. He put a terrible cabinet around himself, and he's looked at as a very weak president. Ronald Reagan was a great orator, not nearly as educated, but he surrounded himself with a great cabinet, and he's revered. You're judged by the people you surround yourself with, and your progress and your success is by the people around you. So
I like how you're not getting political, but you are.
I'm not. No, I'm just saying that those two presidents. Listen. Whether you like Reagan, you don't like Reagan, history is looking back at him because look at who he surrounded himself with, and then look at who Jimmy Carter surrounded himself with.
I will say this because we talk about the issues in the locker room, and if there is actually a vote of confidence for Zach, and if I could, I would like to mention something that Gio Bernard said the other day after the game. Because we've talked about the fact that a lot of guys are saying this is a tight locker room, but not actually endorsing the coaching staff.
Right. Most of the stuff we've heard has been defense of other players.
Right.
And when they've questioned other players, they've been questioning their methods, but there has been overwhelming, hey, Zach's my guy. We made the right choice. Let's all rally behind him. I haven't seen any of those rallying cries.
Right. So I wanted to mention this just because, Gio's been around a little while. It's not like he makes a ton of money, so he's risking, he's not one of those guys like, I don't want to lose my 10 million a year. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's not that guy, but I'll just say it straight ahead. He was asked about Dunlap. He said, we can't worry about the guys that will not defend the team. It breaks my heart that Zach has had to deal with a lot of different things. There's so much other crap. I just want to win for him.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that means that's what everybody feels at all. But when you have a veteran like that, that speaks out, who really is risking nothing because he doesn't have that much of a contract, tells me that sure, there might be some locker room issues, but they're not, they're not, it's not like the locker room is completely against the coaches. The same when we were talking about Tyler Boyd calling out Carlos Dunlap on social media. I think if you're a Bengals fan, whatever way you feel about this situation, however you feel about the coaching staff or how it goes, whether you want guys gone or not, it's worth it to consider that there are people in the locker room that are still completely bought in and that still like what we are doing. And I mean, I wanted to record this today because I don't think Carlos Dunlap's going to be on the team on Thursday.
Oh, I agree with you. And that was one of the reasons why we did this. He's played himself.
And he shouldn't be.
No,
and he shouldn't
he's
be.
played over the last week. He has played himself into a situation where they have no choice but to get rid of him. He's toxic at this point. I have divorce cases, where one of the spouses gets pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and then they eventually break down and they do stuff, and then that makes the situation irreconcilable. We try to settle the case. There's so much emotion, and I had one spouse, broke into the car dealerships and was filmed on camera going through file cabinets. You do crazy shit when you get upset. And it's
Right.
not that she wasn't justified and wasn't entitled to those records, but breaking in at night and getting caught on security cameras was not the way to go about doing this. That's what Carlos did. And then you reach a point
that's what Carlos is doing. It's just one day after another, he's just going on and on and on. And people keep saying trade Carlos, and I'm like, man, just cut him. Just get rid of him.
First of all, we were trying to trade him for a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what Ace found out weeks ago. That he was on the trade block, and they were. And one of the things that was said was, and this is what I heard. That's why I told you watch Ace's show. Was that to the team where we've tried to trade you, no one wants you. That's not something you say in front of the whole team. That's inappropriate, and that kind of pushes you. And like I said, then the thing kind of snowballs, and we're at a point now to where I don't care. I'm not going to play the blame game. You have to go because we're at a point where it's irreconcilable.
Right.
There's no way to.
And speaking of the snowball, my source today said that Dunlap never shows up for a meeting on time. He's late every single day. The coaches are not happy with him. He didn't get bumped down that depth chart just on talent alone, although he has lost a step. He got bumped down because he's being a jerk. And you can't if you let somebody do that to you, then the next guy is going to do that to you too.
No, you never appease a bully. And that's why I said it's time for the team. Carlos has to go. But I'm merely pointing out that we don't get to where we are right now over one event. I had beneficiaries fighting over like $27 million. Each sister was going to walk away with a ton of money. And they were arguing over $200,000 that one said was a gift. The other one said, Mom. And this wasn't about the money. This was about something that happened, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. We don't know what it was, but it wasn't about this. So it's just these things are signs of other things, and that's all I'm cautioning.
I'm encouraged by the coaching staff in that AJ Green seems to have been appeased, according to the guy that I talked to. Geno Atkins apologized for personally, not publicly, for kind of lashing out a little bit about his playing time. He understands that they just want the best for him, and he's such a valuable part of this organization. So, what that tells me is that they're doing something right, because they got two guys that were disgruntled to say, okay, yeah, I get it. I get it. They might not have been happy. You know what I mean? They might have just been, okay, I get it. But Dunlap's got to go. He's got to get out
Oh,
now.
there's no question. We both agree. Dunlap has to go. Like I said, I'm not playing the blame game.
Turner has to go.
Turner has to go, and Anarumo has to go.
And Anarumo can drive the car.
And Anarumo can drive them all out. And the and the other thing is that the fact I'm glad that they've made peace with AJ and they've made peace with Gino, because they're locker room leaders. Okay. If we don't treat those guys right, we send another signal to the locker room. But it also tells me that we did something prior to disrespect them, to make them pissed off. So like I said, and the coaches need to learn about managing personalities.
And I agree with that. And I'll say on top of that, the biggest indication is look at the way AJ has played since then. Look at how he's played.
Right.
He's been outstanding for the last 2 games. He's been like AJ of old. Carlos Dunlap needs to take a note and realize the only way to get back into the starting lineup is to play hard and do your job. You're making millions of dollars.
Right.
Do it. Just get in there.
Yeah.
But at this point, I like you said, it's irreconcilable.
No, it's time. He's got to go.
Carlos needs to go ASAP. And frankly, I love the guy. I love everything he's done for us. He's my sister's favorite player. He does great things in the community, in charities. But if he's not gone on Thursday when we do our game preview, I'd be really disappointed.
Well, unless he had some huge thing. But one of the things that Ace pointed out is Rebecca Toback went on to the parents' Facebook pages and stuff and she did some digging and read stuff about what the family was posting about what was going on. So that's why I encourage people to watch the New Stripe video, because it talks about a lot. And you'll see that this isn't just something that happened overnight. This is something that's been going on, and it's typical. That's typically.
Yeah, I think we all know that there's, who knows how it started, but we all know how it needs to end.
Right. No. Like I said, I don't like to get into, I tell people all the time, I don't want to get into the blame game. That's living life in the rearview mirror. It doesn't work. You need to look forward. And so, I realize that, but I haven't agreed with what Carlos did, how he dealt with any of this. So I'm glad we did this video. Like I said, I didn't want to have this discussion on Thursday before we preview, our Tennessee game, which there's enough there to scare me on Halloween that with Vrabel and Tennessee coming off a loss. So we'll cover that Thursday. Sam, remind everybody where they find your stuff before we
absolutely on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk at Talk Primetime or primetimesportstalk.com.
There you go. So we will not discuss unless Carlos is gone or whatever, but we're going to try to not deal with this issue, and we'll deal with the game on Thursday when we do our previews. Please subscribe. That's all we ask. And we will have our preview up on Thursday, and enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of the Monday night game, which I got to get back to myself. So take care, everybody. Hoo day.
Hoo day.